Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist, Teresa Alexander Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome. Today, my guest is Mr. Richard Tierney. I am going to bring him up, but before I do that, I'm just going to tell you that Richard teaches children that their feelings and emotions are not mental disorders. And he's going to explain all of that to you. Welcome, Mr. Richard.
Oh, please let go of the Mr. Please. Richard is perfectly fine. Thank you very much. So I wouldn't like to call myself Mr. My wife wouldn't call me Mr., so you better not call me Mr. Teresa, thank you for having me. I'm really, really glad to be here. And I really love the fact that you work with children. Children are the future of our human race. If we don't take care of our children, we don't encourage them, we don't build them with confidence, we're not going to survive. That's the truth, you know. We've had our lives and we're not over yet, but the future is our children. If we don't look after all of our children and really encourage them and build them with confidence and strength, we're doing ourselves a disservice. I was mentioned beforehand to Teresa that I saw on the numbers yesterday that there's some 290 million children diagnosed with mental disorders. And it really makes me furious that someone could allow children to be such an easy target. So many children believe that their feelings and emotions are mental disorders, and they're not allowed to feel. They can't be angry, they can't be sad, they can't run away, they can't disassociate. If they run away, they call a coward or a big girl or some terrible comment to make a boy feel less than. If they disassociate, it's now been called a dissociation disorder. If they're angry, they're told they're bipolar or there's something wrong with them. We have to teach children, and it's down to the parents. It's always down to the parents. The parents are the last line of defense. Again, if you have good people like Teresa, Richard, you're lucky, but for many situations, the parents need as much help as possible to teach their children that God created them for a reason. Whether it's because they're autistic or they're on the spectrum, we don't know why God created your child the way he created your child. But your child was created for a reason. God doesn't make mistakes. He's never made a mistake in all of creation. And your child isn't a mistake. I'm not a mistake. Teresa isn't a mistake. I have all my faults and defects and shortcomings. But I'm capable of making a difference in the world, even though I have all my faults and defects and shortcomings, you know. So we are all very special, unique, individual human beings that are made in the image of God, and he made us for a reason. And if we can convey this message to our children, I think that would really go a long way to helping them be more confident in themselves. Next, I try and tell children that our feelings and our emotions are God-given instincts, that in the face of any danger, your call to action, your warning signal are your feelings. So maybe you're living in a home where your parents are always fighting and you're a child. And you're a young child, so they won't let you out of the house because they think you might run out on the road and in front of a car. So they won't let you run away, and you're too small to fight. Well, then you disassociate. Don't explain, don't apologize, don't look for any other permission. You basically sit where you are and go into your dream world of your fantasy. Be a cowboy on a western somewhere or in a spaceship or something. Just go into a space where you're comfortable in your mind. Leave the room mentally and emotionally and go into that space. And you can walk back and forth. If you want to, you can curl up in a ball. You can climb into your bed. But just leave the room and go to a place of fantasy. And stay there for as long as you need to until your parents stop fighting or the bullies walk away. Now, if the bullies are bullying you, when you wake up, you're going to wake up to a sore body. But your mind and your heart is going to be intact. This association is one of the greatest coping skills that children have. And we have to teach them that is perfectly okay.
Yeah, and the world tells them that it's, like you said, a disorder. I wish they would remove that word, because we've got autism spectrum disorder. All these things are disorders. And I agree with you. They are just really, I don't know, states of mind, right? Not so much disorders, because then that puts a negative connotation to a condition or a diagnosis or, a state of mind.
But also, people see your child as having a disorder. They see the child as something being wrong with them. But you know your child is beautiful and unique and special and not a disorder. They know that your child is different to other children, and it's a beautiful child, and it's got a wonderful character and mannerisms, whatever, and that there's nothing wrong with your child. They may be different, but we're all different. We all have black spots, and we all have nicks and knacks and knocks. People are addicted to drugs or alcohol or shopping. People who don't have bad addictions, but they shop all the time, or they spend all the money, or they leave the house cluttered, or they overshop, overspend, or they're compulsive, or they're codependent, or they're control freaks. They may not act out in sex and drugs and alcohol and whatever, but they have their own addiction in a different form.
Yeah.
I remember one guy I met who would go to the gym. In his free time, he'd spend every day in the gym, like 8 hours a day in the gym. And he thought he's this healthy guy, big guy doing this gym, but he can't relationship with his family, with his parents, his siblings, with anybody. He hides in the gym, he just work out all day long, and that's his escape. And he's not drinking or drugging or anything, but his escape is. So we are all different. We all have our faults and our defects and our insecurities. But God created us the way we are for a reason.
Yes. I mean, and it leads me to think of the that Bible verse. If we're all arms or all feet or whatever, like what good would we be? That difference is essential to us learning from each other and just experiencing something different than ourselves.
But again, I'm very impressed by people like yourself, Teresa, and people who are parents of children on the spectrum. Mm. People don't give enough credit to parents or to people who work in this field for their heart's desire to offer children, such as people on the spectrum, a normal living, a normal way of living, acceptance and love. It's profound. None of my children are autistic. I don't have any children in my community who are autistic, but I myself, as I suffered a trauma at the age of 12, which just filled me with such shame and self-loathing. I wanted to die, but I didn't want to live. Mm. And so and that kind of stuff. So there's always been some trauma in a child's life growing up. There's another thing I share that I'd like to share with you guys. I don't know if it pertains to autism, but it might help you in regard to how your children react in certain situations. I saw recently on a TikTok, there was two brothers inside the room, and one fella says to the other, when the umbilical cord is cut, it's all over. We're going to die and it'll be all over because there's no supply to keep our needs met. And the other fella says, well, what if there's something beyond our wildest dreams? When will we leave the womb and the umbilical cord and we'll be able to stand on our own 2 feet? And your man says, don't be daft, there's no chance of that ever happening. That kind of banter conversation going on inside the room with these two brothers. And it's like the meaning of life and what's after life, what's after death. But in that thought, it reminded me of a thought I've had for many years, and it hasn't been voiced in the professional world, but I think it's something very valid. So if I believe, which I do, that I'm a son of God, and from conception, I am blessed with God's responses to danger, which are my feelings first as my first line of defense, and then fight, flight, or freeze. Now, when we come out of the womb, we don't die or death. We come from life to life. Yeah. And because from life to life, we're still alive through the transition. In that moment, we jump into fight, flight, or freeze. Now, I believe in my case, I jumped into freeze. When I came out of the womb, the midwife saw I was comatose, held me up at the ankles, slapped me in the bottom to get a reaction. They put me in a blanket, put me into a cot. And that moment, my response to danger, which is freeze, was taken from me, which meant for the next 20, 30 years, my response was always, I was stuck in a space of fight or flight. They weren't my go-to. My go-to is freeze, but my message I got at birth was, you cannot trust your freeze, your primary response. You have to go with secondary or third, which are not your choice. So then the child is stuck in a case of fight or flight, not cowardly, not like able to make decisions, just that their response of freeze was taken from them. Then they're stuck in fight or flight. Now the child comes out of the womb kicking and screaming. Maybe it's in a state of fight. The midwife puts them in a blanket, puts them in a cot, and they're told that fight doesn't work. So they're now, for the rest of the next 20 years, they're stuck in a state of freeze or flight. Not their primary responses to danger, but their fight's taken from them, that they're now stuck in these two passive-aggressive, really introverted, hyper reactions of either running away or freezing, and they're not their response because they want to fight. So they're having this battle in their minds about responding to life because they can't respond, they won't respond. Then the third child comes out, and that child is trying to run away. It looks exactly like fight, wrapped in a blanket, put in the cot, and it's told it can never fight again. So now its primary response is flight. Now it's looking into case of fight or freeze. And like that, they're not their primary responses. So when they face danger, they should be flighting, but the message they got at birth is flight is not safe. You cannot flight, which is the safe place for you. So you have to fight or you have to freeze. And fight and freeze are not their natural go-to. So they're stuck.
Wow.
You understand? And the fourth one is when the child comes out of the womb, happy, joyous, and free, smiling and cheerful and content. And the nurse gets the baby, realizes it's happy, gives it to the mother to hold because there's not any stress in the mother. The mother holds the child to his bosom, heart to heart, the connection is reestablished. And that child goes on to become like a John Wayne or a Nelson Mandela, someone who's, we look up to and think the strong, silent type, the kind who are become famous and rich and all powerful. And kind of go, that's the kind of person I love to be. They have all their responses intact when they're born. So I would love for parents with children who are on the spectrum to try and find out. And what they do is you teach your children that this week we're going to practice freeze. Mm-hmm. We're all going to pretend we're in danger, and we're all going to either curl up in a ball in a beanbag, we're all going to climb onto the bed or into the wardrobe or in the bed and be very quiet and very still, or we're going to sit still, close your eyes and fantasize about being somewhere. We're going to do this for half an hour, and then after we're going to all talk about what that felt like and how good it felt. Wow. And kind of encourage the idea of freeze. And then the next week, encourage flight. The next one, encourage fight. The next one, encourage the fact that God is in charge, so everything will be okay. Acceptance. And do this every month, where you do each one for a week at a time or something. So the children learn it's okay to freeze. It's okay to fight or flight or fight or to accept. And certainly that gift to your children helps them to empower them more.
Wow, that is so profound because, studies show that autistic children are in constant, like they're constantly in their amygdala, the flight, fight, freeze. But if they don't exactly know how to do that effectively, then I see how it could cause a problem. So you're teaching them to have those responses in a safe way. Now, I see what freeze could look like. How would you play out fight?
A couple of things. One is you ask someone for help. You ask someone to sit with you and hold your hand until the danger passes. You seek some form of solution. And again, you can run away, and that can be you fighting the situation. Mm-hmm. So it's not flight. It's a case of flight is where you run away and you've got no choice, but you're running away.
Right.
But fight can be a case of you're choosing to run away and you're in control of the process. So you can fight in fight. You understand? You're in control of your reaction. Whereas in flight, you're not in any control. You're kind of running and you're just so fearful and you're running any direction. But if you're in action and you're in fight, you can run away. But it's different because now you're in control of every part of it. You have a decision where you're going to run to, where you're going to hide. So you can do it that way. You can just say no. Another big one is to scream and shout, drawing attention to yourself. Mm. Bullies don't like people noticing what they're doing. So if you're being bullied, start screaming and shouting out loud and crying out loud. The bully will walk away. Someone comes over, what's going on? Johnny's bullying me. Every day he comes anywhere near you, scream and shout and cry. Eventually Johnny will go looking for some other victim and he'll leave you alone. You can report the person. Write an email to your parents, your teacher, the police, your pastor in your church, social services, my teacher, my substitute teacher, my neighbor is bullying me, or my parent. You teach the child it's okay to take action. Mm-hmm. It's like the child cried wolf 3 times. If the child has to cry wolf, let the child cry wolf. You're teaching the child to cope. It's not about how it affects you. I'm busy here, stop disturbing me. It's about the child being allowed to take an action. So again, many other ways of fighting. They can write a letter. There's a lovely God practice. It's wonderful. You get a pen and paper and you write at the top, "Dear God, love Teresa," with your dominant hand. And then you write about how you hate being on the spectrum. You hate having 5 kids who are on the spectrum, and you hate your husband, and you hate your boss, and whatever it is. How can you do this to me? And you attack God, and you put in this page, okay? Then you turn the page over, and you with your non-dominant hand, so I'm left-handed, my dominant hand, my non-dominant, I write, "Dear Teresa, love God." And because it's my non-dominant hand, I activate my subconscious mind. And when my pen hits the paper, it's not me writing. It's coming from my subconscious. So God says, that's what you mean you don't like your life. Things will come up for you with your non-dominant hand that you're not in control of. God will say things to you that you're blown away.
Wow.
You kind of go, I blessed you with 3 vector kids. They're going to get a cure for cancer or AIDS, and you're thinking I've given you whatever. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you do this exercise, and even the parents should do it for themselves to experience it, so then when they share it with their children, they're on the same page. They can discuss after what it was like, So it's a really cool practice. If you've lost a loved one or you've lost your pet, and it's this, your soul destroying, you write to your pet, dear. We have a dog called Muffin. Dear Muffin, love Daddy. And I write to Muffin about how could you leave me so soon, and I really missed you, and I need you here. And then the other side, Muffin, dear Daddy, love Muffin. It's my time to go. I want to meet my parents in heaven. I want to go to doggy heaven, and all my family are out there, and I've got to go, and you've got to let me go and release me. And I love being around you, but now it's my time. So whatever comes down on your paper, it'll be different. So I think this works wonders for children on spectrum or have any mental kind of challenges to activate the subconscious mind with the non-dominant hand. It's a wonderful practice. So even for myself, I'm not on the spectrum, but I do a thing every evening when I do my journaling and my conversation with God. I talk to God every day. My right hand now, in the beginning, was scribbles like an old person was trying to write. When you haven't written, use your right hand forever, and suddenly it's like this kind of real. Now you think I'm writing with my left hand. My right hand is better than my left hand.
Wow.
I'm doing so I've just developed a writing with my right hand, and when I look at it, I kind of go, I've grown so much now. I can read God's writing. It's really cool, and it still doesn't change the fact that what you're writing is coming from your subconscious. Even though my writing's improved and it looks so neat, it's still my subconscious mind. So I'm giving my subconscious mind an opportunity to speak.
Wow, Richard, I have never heard of this before. It is fascinating. I am going to practice that because I've talked. So, the art that you see, that's from my son who decided to transition. And when I say decided, it was an accident. But, I believe that when people transition, they may have a choice. I don't know. That's just me talking.
Well, he can paint with his right hand. He can paint with his non-dominant hand. He can try painting in this transition like God paints. You can do this with painting, you can do this with drawing, you can do this with writing, but anything at all. It's your activate your subconscious mind.
Wow. There's so many simple things out there, and then we try the more because it's easier to take a pill.
Yes.
It's easier to do things and of course, all of those things have side effects. So if doing that, like, have you found though that children have been able to come off medication? I'm just asking, I don't know, being able to get in touch with their emotions and to use the non-dominant hand to access their subconscious to be able to resolve issues?
It's very challenging getting to children because the parents are so protective of their children. The therapists have got it so sewn up that someone coming from left field with some ideas, they're kind of going, yeah, well, or whatever. So if the parents are open to it, but my hope is that therapists will start doing this practice where they will say, okay, rather than popping a pill, for this week we're going to practice freeze all week long. I'm not going to give you a pill, but when you come to my therapy room, I'm going to have a space out in the back garden where you can hide to. I'm going to space in this next room where you can hide under a bed or something. There's going to be a bed in the corner here you can go and have a sleep, or there's going to be a beanbag you can go over there and curl up in a ball and you can freeze and disassociate and shut down mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then you'll have it half an hour, and then I'll wake you up, I ring a bell, and you come over and tell me what it felt like. And if we could get therapists to do that with children in a safe place, and parents do it at home with children in a safe place, I think then people will be open to the next step is doing all this with children.
Oh man, and you can make it fun. It could
Completely.
be a game where they're actually, because we know a lot of issues stem from people not being allowed to feel their emotions. So often I hear parents tell children, "Well, don't get upset." Like, why can't they get upset? You get upset. Allow them to get upset. Why can't they be sad? It's not normal to be happy, smiling, and blissful all the time. Children, when they express all these different emotions, when they're permitted to, then they can grow up being more emotionally intelligent because they know themselves. They understand their feelings and their, and their emotions. So,
Totally. And that's the obligation we have, is to create a safe place for children to do that. We're meant to allow children to have their feelings. And we may not like their feelings, we may not like what they react. I became a parent, and again, I remember when I wasn't a parent, I looked at my brother and I couldn't believe he let his sons talk back to him. I was kind of going, I'd murder the fuckers. Like, let me at them. I'll put them in their place. Because when I grew up, children were seen and not heard. You'd never talk back to your mother, your father. You get a clatter around the ears, you know. So I'm looking at my older brother, and his sons would just really talk back to him in really condescending and in hurtful ways. And my brother would take it, allow it to happen. I went, what the hell is wrong with you? You're not a real man. You can't give your son a clatter or something, or you're afraid of the political correctness. He goes, I want my children to grow up to be healthy, mature adults. I want them to be able to express their feelings, and it's safe for them to express their feelings with their parents, so they can express the same with strangers. So if they want to tell me to call me a feckin' idiot or call me a bad name, I let them do that. So my daughter's 21 years of age now, and we live in Thailand, which really isn't a very kind of friendly society for women. It really is. It's a very sexist society, really not a healthy society. I hope my daughter, when she finishes college, she'll go off to America or go to Europe or somewhere and leave Thailand altogether, because to live here would be it really isn't a great place for women. And so I let her, and she will talk down to me, she'll talk back at me, maybe it's the time of the month, she'll be very irritable with me. And I just, self-restraint, just take it on, and then she goes away. Maybe an hour she might say, Dad, I'm sorry I've blown up at you. But I needed to let her express herself so that she could say to me I was wrong. Or else she doesn't say I'm wrong, she feels she's right. But she got to practice on her father, who's not going to abuse or beat her up, you know. And she was able to practice on me and practice on her mother. And she grows into a stronger, more independent woman. And my son then the same, you know. And he's no problem talking back to me now and putting me in my place. And I just doing the veil, close them out, don't say a word, self-restraint. And that's parenting. That's what your parents are doing, what you're doing, with your son transitioning. You let them be who they are meant to be. It may not be the person you want, but it's the person God created them to be.
Right. When I said, I know transition has come to mean a new word. When I meant transition, he is now, he's with God again. So yeah, he's past. Yeah. So, but yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, because again, when children are allowed to express themselves in a safe environment, they develop so much more like confidence. And when a child is confident, there's nothing they will not do, nothing they cannot do. And they don't develop that to be into a negative. They actually develop it into a strength. And, studies show that when children feel safe, they thrive. If we don't allow children to feel safe, they don't trust you as a parent. There's so many things that don't happen out of that feeling of, of not being safe.
Completely. I mean, I'm thinking of your audience who are parents to a child on the spectrum. Can you imagine what that child's life would be like if they weren't with their parents who love them and care for them? How much harder their life would be, but the parents lovingly. I take my hat off to anyone who has to deal with any difficulties, that they continue to stay on the path of being a parent or a husband or dysfunctional family, and you stay on the path of being a husband and a wife, hoping you can help your partner find their way back, whatever that is. It's a huge strength, a huge expression of love. And for a child or a partner to grow up in that environment, it's wonderfully beautiful. I must say to you, I'm sorry I didn't understand what you meant by transition for your son. That conversation, that letter with you and your son, again, I did for my parents. I had issues with both my parents who passed. And I did a letter. They weren't pleasant letters on my side of it. But when they wrote back to me, it blew my mind. What they said to me was not what I expected. I expected to have this big battle, And it was so. Yeah.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Ooh, Richard, we can talk forever. Yeah. So any words before, anything you want to leave our audience with?
Oh, there's three I share with any clients I work with. One is you're not the target and you're not a victim. What's happening isn't happening to you. Whatever's going on in your life, if your boss is going to fire you, he's not out to get you. He's making a decision for his business. He's making a decision for his bottom line or whatever. And it so happens that you're the last in or something, or you're not working out. So it's not a case of you're the target. His target is his bottom line. That's his target. That's his victim. And basically, so it's not about you. Again, if your wife or husband looking for divorce, it's not about you. You're not the victim. You're not the target. It's about them fulfilling their own needs. So that's the first line of defense. And if you can embrace that, everything will change for you. The second is to understand you're never alone. You have, like Teresa on our podcast, you have, again, in this day and age, there's so much support out there for people on the spectrum, for parents, for siblings, for husbands, for wives. There's codependency groups, there's 12-step support groups for all sorts of dysfunctional families, everything kind of stuff. So there's loads of support out there. And the last thing I say is give God a second chance. So many people, pastors and priests and ministers, abuse God for their own benefits. And they use God for terrible abuse. But it wasn't God who did it. It was man using God as a weapon. But God has never harmed anyone, and he loves you dearly, and he wants you to be fruitful and bountiful and to multiply and have a wonderful life, both for you and for your children. So if you can introduce God into your home and teach your children to trust God and to know that God is there for them, he'll always be there for them. He will give a miracle. I love this. He gives us miracles if we want the miracle. Our problem is, okay, God answers all our prayers. I'll try and do this very fast. God answers all our prayers all day long. Our prayers aren't the prayers we learned at a mother's knee or what we learned in school or in church. Our prayers are our self-talk, the things we say to ourselves we think no one's listening. So if I'm thinking, I am depressed, I hate my life, no one likes me, I can't get a job, I can't get a boyfriend, I can't get a girlfriend, I can't get a husband, I can't get a wife, I can't get a place to live. These are our prayers. God doesn't do feelings, and he gave us free will in the book of instructions. And if we don't follow the instructions, it's our own fault. So if we're saying all these bad things, he's giving us tenfold more of each of those things. If I say I'm depressed, I'm going to experience 10 expressions of depression today. If I say I can't find a girlfriend, I'm going to have 10 rejections or whatever today. So we have to turn around and say, in the past, I used to believe that I was depressed. But today, after listening to Teresa and Richard, I love my life. And I realize today, everything's changing and I feel better for myself and I can accept my feelings and it's okay because they are not mental disorders. They're a healthy coping skill. And I feel happy that I'm depressed because it tells me something's wrong with my life. And this kind of stuff. When you start changing your beliefs, everything changes.
Wow. So profound. Thank you so much, Richard. And how can people find you and learn more from you, get help from you?
The books I've written, one is called How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day. And that's for children, mainly children, but for adults as well. This is all about owning your feelings and how to do that in a healthy way. And the whole practices I shared with Teresa. And that's available on Amazon and on most book platforms. And then my second program, I'm hoping to talk to you again, Teresa, but this may be in the future. It's for people who suffer with things like PTSD and depression, how to let go of the past to be free today. It's a 3-hour healing event that you can let go of the past in 3 hours. So you can be free today. So again, they're also available on Amazon. It's Healing Any Trauma Memory and Trauma Recovery Anonymous, which is basically a 12-step program designed on the 12 steps of AA, which teaches you how to break free of any learned dysfunctional behavior like a mental disorder diagnosis.
Wow.
So I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. Tierney Therapy or Trauma Recovery Anonymous, you'll find me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. This has been so eye-opening for me. I've learned so much from you in 20-something minutes. So I really appreciate you being here. Thanks again. To our audience, thank you so much for watching. Get his books, learn more, because we all deserve to live a life of freedom, right? Free from, and I think all of this leads you to a life free from judgment also. So judgment of yourself and not accepting judgment from others. So reach out and catch me again here on E360 TV. You can watch all the previous episodes and also on Spotify at Parenting on the Spectrum. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.